Hello everyone, I just want to film the last wrap-up to my Harry Potter reread with the book-to-movie comparisons for the Deathly Hallows. And there's quite a bit of differences between the book and the two movies, and I'm not going to touch on base on all of them because we'd be here for like 3 hours. So I'll just touch base on the ones that stood out to me. And in the book, there's a conversation between Voldemort and Bellatrix, and that's how readers discovered that Lupin and Tonks got married. And my cat sees a bird. Don't mind me. Don't mind him. And then there was articles about Dumbledore and his life mentioning his brother. And Rita Skeeter is writing a book about Dumbledore and claims she was close to Harry Potter and he didn't have many friends. And yes, this was just shown in the movies, but it was discussed more in the books. And Uncle Vernon doesn't believe that they're in danger and wants to stay put. He thinks Harry is trying to take the house. So Kingsley and Mr. Weasley told the Dursleys they weren't safe and offered them protection. And they saw Kingsley on the news and wanted him some protection, but he can't because he's watching the Prime Minister. And then there's two wizards that came and took the Dursleys to a safe house, kind of. And once they leave, the protection charm is broken. And Harry thought he was apparating with Mad-Eye Moody, and Dudley had asked why Harry wasn't coming and when he was going to go. And Dudley actually said he didn't think that Harry was a waste of space and that Harry saved his life. And Dudley even shook Harry's hand. And Aunt Petunia just said a quick goodbye. And I thought that was touching. I wish that would have been more in the movies. And then, interesting, the group of 14 was going to different safe houses, and then they were meeting up at the window. So, Harry and Hagrid were going to Ted Tonks and his wife, in other words, Tonks' parents. And Harry reluctantly gave his hand for the Polyjuice potion. Hermione didn't grab it. And Ted actually had to fix up Harry's tooth and ribs and some other broken body parts. And Harry and Hagrid had crashed by their house. And then they took a key to the bureau, and Lupin and George came, and Lupin encouraged Harry to not use his signature move Expelliarmus. Like the same place of Expelliarmus. And Snape is the one who took off George's ear. And Mrs. Weasley pushes the three, even Harry, on info about why they're dropping out of Hogwarts, and they won't tell him. And Mrs. Weasley kept the trio apart and busy trying to keep them from planning to leave. And basically the whole one is asking, what's Harry doing, but he won't tell them. And Ron actually had a ghoul to pretend to be him, to protect his family, saying that he was sick at home. And his mom and dad would show him in his bed. And his dad actually helped do it, even though his mom wasn't so happy, transforming the ghoul. And Harry wants to go to Godric's Hollow first, and Hermione had actually summoned a Horcrux book from Dumbledore's Dumbledore's study before they left Hogwarts the year before. And the book said Horcruxes had to be destroyed by something very destructive. And Harry's birthday was actually celebrated in the book. There was a few presents and a meal that got interrupted when the Minister of Magic showed up with Mr. Weasley. And Lupin and Tonks were there, but they left quickly because they didn't want to be seen. That would be bad. And it was kind of funny because in the book, Hermione wasn't afraid to tell the Minister off, and the Minister interrogated each one of them of why they received those items. And the Minister was the one that mentioned small objects can be held in the snitch. And Mr. and Mrs. Weasley looked at the items with no ideas of what that meant. Why they were given those items. And later that night, they checked the snitch out, and it said, "I open at the close," not later in the movies. And it was then that they discussed the book that Hermione was given, but they didn't read it. And Haley was disguised as a cousin at Bill and Flora's wedding. And some people knew it was him. Crumb was at the wedding. And there was no dressing up Ginny's dress scene. And Ron danced with Hermione. And Crumb and Haley had a conversation. Crumb had asked if Ron and Hermione were together. And then he inquired after Ginny. And said all the good ones were taken. Because Haley made up some lie. And through the conversation with Doge and Muriel, Haley realizes that he didn't know that much about Dumbledore. And Lupin didn't say go like in the movie, even though that was so touching in the movie. And interesting, when they were at Grimmauld Place, Arthur Weasley sent his Patronus saying the family is safe, don't respond when being watched. And Haley ran across a letter from his mom to Sirius, and it mentioned Bathilda Bagshot, and it talked about him. And then he discovers at Grimmauld Place that Creature had gone with Voldemort to hide the locket. Then he helped Regulus, Sirius's brother, switch the locket, and then he was ordered to leave Regulus behind in that cave. He was pulled under the water. He was also told to never tell the mom what happened and to destroy the first locket. And Creature tried to destroy it, but he couldn't. And then Lupin actually came to visit them, and he offered to come with them and protect them. And Tonks was pregnant, and Haley did not take that too well. He wanted Lupin to go back to take care of his dad, so they had it out. And then the trio was actually watching the Ministry for quite a while, doing research on how to get the locket. And there was no Dobby helping Creature like in the movie with Mundungus Fletcher. And at the Ministry, they had a conversation with Arthur in the elevator as the people they were pretending to be with Apologies Potion. And Haley actually told Mr. Weasley he was being tracked. And Mr. Weasley took it as a threat. And then Haley went under the invisibility cloak to get Hermione. Ron had to deal with the reigning office. So it was just Ron and Hermione down in the trial room. And Ron told them when they got back together that they knew them as intruders, and Haley used his disguise to get them all in before everything was sealed off through the Flu Network. And the woods that Hermione brought them to was the woods where they held the Quidditch World Cup. And then at one point they saw goblins and Ted Tonks talking as they walked past in the woods. Ted had left because he knew they were coming for him. And interesting, Dean Thomas was with them too. And this whole thing was excluded in the movie, which I wish they would have included. They just saw Snatchers instead. And they actually had taken Sirius's grandfather, the great-grandfather, Professor Black, his portrait. So they had him in a bag, and they talked to him with his eyes covered so he couldn't report to anyone else when he was, because his portrait also hangs in the headmaster's office. And they learned that Gryffindor's sword was used by Dumbledore to destroy the ring, and that it can destroy Horcruxes. They also knew a fake was in the case. When it was the real one, that was the real question. And when Haley and Hermione went to Godric's Hollow, they went as Muggles under the invisibility cloak, not as themselves, like in the movie. And he saw his parents fight Voldemort that night, all those years ago. And I thought it was interesting that there was actually, like, a statue of the family, and then a sign saying, like, we support you, Potter, and something to that extent, which I thought was touching. I wish that was in the movie. And then Ron had found a special broadcast that you needed a password that changes to listen to, and that gave info on Voldemort's movements and stuff from the Order with code names. And when Ron was gone, away from from Haley and Hermione, he went to Bill and Flora's house, and they didn't tell the rest of the family, so he celebrated Christmas with them. And Bill and Flora told the Weasleys that they were celebrating with Flora's family. And Haley had peeked in Luna's room when they were at to the house, and he saw pictures of them and wrote friends, which was touching. And then he noticed that Luna hadn't been staying in her room like her dad had said. Her clothes weren't there. And during that time, Hermione was smart enough to keep them hidden under Ron hidden under the cloak so his family would be protected. And then she let the Death Eaters see Henry so they believed Luna's dad, so they would hopefully get him back. But that didn't happen. And in the story, the third brother is Henry's ancestor. Henry figured out the resurrection stone is in the snitch, and all they need is the Elder Wand. The Death Hallows are real, is basically what he figured out. And then, as weeks passed by, Ron took charge. He tried planning when they haven't looked. And I like that he took charge in this whole thing, because sometimes he gets overlooked, which made me sad. And then on the Potter Watch broadcast, they discovered that Ted Tonks was murdered. And the voices during that broadcast were Lee Jordan, Kingsley, Lupin, Fred. And even though Ron had told Harry and Hermione when he got back that saying Voldemort's name was taboo, Harry accidentally said it and alerted the Snatchers, and that's how they were caught. And they were tied to 2 prisoners, Dean and Griphook. And the Snatchers, including Greyback, figured they caught Harry and decided to take him to Voldemort's base, which was Malfoy Manor. And Dean was also in the cellar with him. And one thing they didn't show in the movie was that Wormtail's metal hand strangled him. And he killed himself, basically. And then Lupin came at Bill and Florence and said his son Ted was born, and asked Harry to be godfather. And once they were in the vault, they had burns from touching all the cups, trying to get to the other cups, which wasn't in there. And once they were in the room of requirement, it was discovered that a group of kids had been hiding out there and living there in that room. And Luna and Dean came back, and George, Fred, Lee, and Ginny came through the hole in the wall, too. And then in Ravenclaw's tower, McGonagall was in, and the Kiddos had been in it, and Harry told them that Voldemort was coming. Professor Snape and Professor McGonagall fought in the hallway, and then Sprout, Slughorn, and Flitwick came, and Harry and Luna went under the cloak. So basically, that whole public scene of them fighting wasn't there, even though that was pretty cool in the movie. And members of the Order of the Phoenix and some others were in the room of requirement when Harry and Luna returned there. And even Percy came and he said he was a fool. And it was a touching moment in the book. And it was Nearly Headless Nick that tells Harry who Ravenclaw's ghost is. And helps him locate him. Helps Harry locate the Grey Lady. And Ron and Hermione went to the Chamber of Secrets without telling Harry, and they destroyed the cup off-scene, which I'm glad they showed it in the movie. That was kind of cool. And the 3 of them went to the room of requirement together to find the diadem. And then at one point Ron said that they should go tell the house elves to leave and save themselves, and that's when Hermione kissed him in the book, because of course she had that whole defending house elves thing. And the trio seemed to interact more with people during the Battle of Hogwarts than in the movie. Ginny was told to stay home, and to go home, but she wouldn't. So then she was told to stay in the room of requirement, but she didn't. And in the room of requirement, Ron didn't go after Malfoy and Crabbe and Goyle, even though in the movie it showed Blaine. But he didn't say, "That's my girlfriend," even though that was pretty cool in the movie. And then Fred and Percy were battling Death Eaters, and Ron, Harry, and Hermione went to help, and then the alien exploded, and then Fred was dead. They moved his body out of the way, and Ron wanted to go kill Death Eaters, and Hermione was the voice of reason. "We have to kill the snake." Hermione, not Ron, told Harry to use occlumency to look into Voldemort and find the snake. And the spiders actually ran off, killing Hagrid into the woods, so that's how he made it out there. Sorry, my kitty is really needed today, and Malin. And then there's one of Snape's memories, like one of the glimpses into Haley's parents' lives and the friendship and how Snape had protected Haley. Like it was his Patronus that led Haley to the sword. And then in the book, Colin Creevey was dead, and Oliver Wood had moved him, so Oliver Wood was not in the movie at all that I noticed. And there was no scene in the book when Hermione offered to go with him to the forest, even though I thought that was touching in the movie. And when they were in King's Cross, Dumbledore had explained his time with Grindelwald and his family in the Hallows. And seeing Haley's body, McGonagall, Ron, Hermione, and Ginny screamed, moaned, "No," and Haley, and obviously they were crying. And Neville didn't make that exact movie speech, even though it was magnificent in the movie. But he did say something, and Neville did kill the snake, like, out there when he made the speech. It never chased Ron and Hermione, even though it made great theatrics in the movie. And in the book, the house elves, led by Creature, were fighting, and I thought that was so amazing that Creature finally supported Haley and Regulus when he said that in the sentence fought. And at one point, Voldemort was fighting McGonagall, Slughorn, and Kingsley all at once in the book. That would have been nice to see it in the movies. And Bellatrix had dueled with Hermione, Ginny, and Luna all at once, and that was when Mrs. Weasley stepped in. And Voldemort had aimed his wand at Mrs. Weasley, and Haley had shielded her, and that's when, like, Haley and Voldemort talked more in the book during the fight. And then afterwards, Luna distracted everyone so Haley could put on the cloak and be alone for a while, and he got Hermione and Ron to follow him. And he told them about the pensive and the forest, and they went to the headmaster's office, and all the headmasters clapped in the portraits. And Haley talked to Dumbledore, and he repaired his wand with an elven wand, and then he put the elven wand back when it came from. So basically that's the differences that I noted from the books. And in the movies, let's just say, I mean, I pretty much loved all of them. Part 1 is definitely my favorite Harry Potter movie, and I think it's before everything gets resolved. I just like to live in a world where everything keeps going. And I just love Dobby and how Neville gets his moments in the movies with a boom and his speech. And I love the final scenes at Hogwarts, even though they were a little bit different book versus movie. I mean, I love the battle between McGonagall and Snape, and Harry and Voldemort, and the whole Gringotts scene, and the whole Seven Potter scene. Basically, I love both Harry Potter books and movies, and it was a great reread for me. Alright, thanks for watching and have a great day.